The studio carried an unusual stillness that morning, the kind of quiet that made even the stage lights seem softer. The audience filtered in with a buzz of excitement because today's guest was someone who brought a very different energy to daytime television, Jonathan Roumie, the actor whose gentle presence and spiritual gravitas had made him a global favorite through The Chosen. Crew members whispered that the tickets for this show had sold out in minutes. People came early, some even clutched small devotional items they hoped he might acknowledge or bless by proximity alone. It wasn't a normal talk show energy, it was reverent, almost sacred. The hosts emerged to applause. Joy Behar was the last to sit, shuffling papers with the familiar impatience of someone ready to stir the pot. She wasn't opposed to Jonathan personally, she just disliked anything that felt too earnest, too humble, too untouchable. And Jonathan, with his calm eyes and patient posture, radiated precisely that. When he walked on stage, the studio erupted. Not celebrity applause, adoration. Jonathan smiled shyly, nodding to the crowd, his demeanor modest and almost monastic. He greeted each host with gentle warmth, thanking them for having him. Joy offered a tight smile, the corners of her mouth not quite reaching her eyes. She recognized the imbalance immediately. The audience was already on his side. Whoopi began the interview with soft questions about the emotional weight of portraying Jesus, the global impact of the show, the unexpected reach of its message. Jonathan answered with sincerity, his voice calm, his tone thoughtful. He spoke about responsibility, compassion, unity, themes the audience absorbed like nectar. It was all going smoothly until Joy shifted in her seat. "So, Jonathan," she said, tapping the table with her pen, "playing Jesus, that's quite a role. Do you ever worry you're taking yourself a little too seriously?" She chuckled lightly, expecting laughter. Instead, silence. A thick, awkward silence. Jonathan blinked, the first hint of surprise crossing his face. Sarah shot Joy a side glance. Sunny raised her eyebrows. Whoopi inhaled slowly, already sensing danger. Joy continued, unbothered, "I mean, actors who play religious figures sometimes start believing their own press. That's a real thing, isn't it? People projecting holiness onto you, expecting you to be something you're not." The audience murmured, not with agreement but with discomfort. Joy always walked the line, but today she was leaning too far over it. Jonathan folded his hands, looking down for a moment before lifting his eyes back to Joy. "I think," he said gently, "that portraying a figure like Jesus demands humility, not ego. The responsibility isn't to elevate myself, it's to bring comfort and hope to people who may need it." Joy smirked, crossing her legs. "Yes, hope is great. But the show, your show, has been accused of being, well, let's call it what it is, religious sensationalism." The audience reacted instantly. A wave of disapproval moved through them. Jonathan's expression didn't waver, but something behind his eyes shifted, resolve, perhaps. With respect, Jonathan answered, his voice still soft but now steadier, "The show is made with sincerity. If it resonates, it's because people feel something genuine. Mockery of what others hold sacred says more about the mocker than the subject." It was a gentle statement, but it hit the room like thunder. The audience exploded into applause, louder than any reaction so far. It was the kind of clap that came with pointed energy, protective, approving, and a little bit vengeful. Joy's face tightened. She didn't like being corrected, especially not by someone who didn't even raise his voice. "Oh, I'm mocking, is that what you think?" Joy asked sharply. Jonathan smiled, not smugly, but with the serene calm of someone who wasn't there to fight. "I'm saying that intention matters. If you ask a question to understand, that's one thing. If you ask to provoke, that's another." Sarah tried to intervene with a light-hearted comment, but Joy was already leaning forward. "So now you're judging my intentions?" Joy snapped. "Because you play Jesus, you think you know people's hearts now." The audience groaned. Sunny rubbed her temples. Whoopi cast the kind of weary glance she usually saved for political meltdowns. Jonathan took a breath, slow and centered. "Joy, I'm not judging you. I'm responding to what you implied. I believe dialogue should uplift, not diminish." Joy laughed, a brittle, defensive laugh. "Everything doesn't have to be uplifting. Sometimes it's just conversation. Conversations can still be respectful," Jonathan replied, tone steady as stone, especially when discussing something that millions of people hold deeply meaningful. That did it. The audience erupted again. Cheers, applause, a few shouts of agreement. And this time, Joy's composure visibly cracked. Her cheeks flushed red, her jaw hardened, and her eyes flicked toward the producers, who were frantically gesturing behind the cameras for her to move on. But Joy wasn't finished. "So you're saying I'm disrespectful for asking a simple question?" The day after the explosive interview, the studio felt charged, as though the air itself had thickened with anticipation. Every crew member seemed on edge, moving with careful, deliberate steps as they set up the cameras, adjusted lights, and coordinated teleprompters. News of the previous day's clash between Joy Behar and Jonathan Roumie had spread like wildfire. Clips of the exchange were trending on social media, with headlines like, "Jonathan Roumie schools Joy Behar on The View," and, "Joy Behar humiliated by calmness of the chosen star." Hashtags filled the feeds. Hashtag Joy Behar, hashtag The View, hashtag Jonathan Roumie, hashtag The Chosen, hashtag Walkoff, hashtag Viral TV. People were already rewatching and debating, commenting on every pause, every word, every expression. The internet had decided, and Joy knew what the verdict was. She arrived at the studio early, her usual bright energy replaced by a tight, controlled edge. Her hair was perfectly coiffed, her makeup immaculate, but the tension in her shoulders betrayed her internal state. She didn't acknowledge the crew as warmly as usual. Instead, she walked past them with a clipped, muttered greeting, scanning the set as if she were already bracing for the next fight. Even the assistant producers, who had weathered countless storms, exchanged nervous glances, recognizing the storm brewing behind her eyes. The other hosts were already seated at the table, trying to maintain composure. Whoopi glanced at Joy and gave a tentative, cautious smile, sensing the underlying tension. Sunny's posture was stiff, her hands folded nervously on the table, aware that anything said could trigger the tinderbox. Sarah, as always, tried to maintain neutrality, her eyes flicking between Joy and the cameras, mentally preparing for damage control. The red light on the camera switched on, signaling that the live broadcast had begun. The applause from the audience was polite, almost tentative, as if they, too, were unsure what was about to unfold. Joy forced a smile, waving gently, but her eyes betrayed the storm that had been brewing since yesterday's confrontation. The show opened with the usual banter, but the energy was already fraying, each host tiptoeing around the tension like acrobats on a high wire. As the discussion moved to the day's entertainment topics, Joy's sharp instincts immediately honed in on a story about faith-based television programming. She leaned forward, placing her elbows on the table, her voice crisp and slightly biting. "So, these so-called morality plays," she began, gesturing toward the screen, "do they really uplift audiences, or are they just self-important productions pretending to have virtue?" The audience reacted instantly, a mixture of gasps, murmurs, and the occasional soft groan. Some viewers had tuned in hoping to see a continuation of the previous day's drama, others were simply shocked at the directness. Whoopi leaned back slightly, sensing that the conversation was teetering dangerously close to igniting another on-air confrontation. Sunny pinched the bridge of her nose, her jaw tight, clearly worried that Joy was about to escalate things. Sarah attempted a gentle interjection, "Well, Joy, some people find inspiration and comfort in these shows." Joy waved her hand dismissively, cutting her off. "Oh, please, inspiration and comfort, really? Or is it more about viewers feeling morally superior while sipping their tea at home?" The audience shifted uncomfortably, a ripple of disapproval and nervous laughter weaving through the seats. Co-hosts exchanged quick glances. The cameras captured every micro-expression, the hesitation, the raised eyebrows, the almost imperceptible sighs of exasperation. Joy continued, her voice rising slightly, energized by the audience's attention and the adrenaline from yesterday's humiliation. "I mean, let's call it what it is. Shows like these thrive on moral posturing. And if you question them, suddenly you're the villain, suddenly, the critic, the skeptic, the one who doesn't understand faith." Sunny finally spoke, trying to mediate with a calm tone. "Joy, I don't think anyone here is questioning your understanding. We just want what?" Joy interrupted, leaning back and fixing the audience with a pointed gaze. "Want me to bite my tongue? Want me to apologize for saying what everyone else is thinking but is too polite to say out loud?" The tension in the room thickened. The audience's nervous energy was palpable, the applause that followed was hesitant, almost polite, but with undercurrents of shock and curiosity. Whoopi attempted a mild attempt at redirection. "Joy, maybe we should save some of these points for later." "No," Joy said sharply, standing up suddenly, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I'm tired of being painted as the villain every time someone hides behind spirituality.